Editing is one of the most important things a YouTuber can learn how to do. Sure, there's some YouTubers out there that have editing specialists on their team that do all of the editing for them, but that only really happens when you get to like the upper echelon of YouTube creators, and I guarantee that those guys didn't have those editors with them to begin with. The point is, you need to learn how to edit, and edit well. So these are 5 super easy techniques that you can implement in your next video to make everything flow a little bit smoother and to get more views. Tip number 1, the humble J cut. Everybody knows how to do a jump cut, which is basically just cutting out the crappy bits of footage and jumping from one side to the other like that. And maybe you'll disguise it by doing a bit of a punch in or putting some B-roll over the top and nobody's the wiser. That's not what I'm talking about. A J cut is basically a technique used to make these transitions just a little bit less jarring. Just take your second clip audio, drop it down onto a lower track in the timeline, then drag the whole thing a few frames to the left so that it overlaps your prior clip. Now cut the video back so that you're not seeing the new video until you want the clip to switch over, then you're done. It's as simple as that. I use J-cuts for almost all of my transitions. Even if it's just a few frames over, it makes the whole video seem so much smoother. Let me know if you have any questions about this down in the comments. Next, you've got to master soundtracking your videos, and admittedly, this is something I'm still working on, but we'll get better together. How about that? We'll work on it together. There's more to soundtracking than just picking some good music and putting it in, just laying it behind in the background of your video. When used right, the score that you edit with should sort of ebb and flow with the emotions of your scenes. It's not just gonna be one note. So generally, I'll tend to like start with something a little bit more suspenseful to get people excited or on edge, and then maybe even just drop it off into nothing and have no music for a little while. Now, if I'm reviewing a product, making a product review video, and I discover something about it that I don't necessarily like, then I'll put some sad music in behind it to kind of bring you along with that emotion. Or if I'm going over like the tech specs of a camera, sort of technical stuff, then maybe I'll put some electronic ambient music just to kind of keep it clipping along. Every timeline is gonna look different depending upon the project, but pretty much no timeline should look like this. This whole thing takes a little bit of time, but with practice, you're gonna find that there's a lot more emotions in your videos than you originally thought. Piggybacking off of the last tip, let's stick with sound design. We're already here. This one's about sound effects. I have seen way too many videos that are way too quiet, and that results in them being pretty boring. Again, I'm guilty of this myself. You get all excited that your edit is finished and don't hit that export button just yet. You still need to use sound effects. Here's how I do it. First, I mute all of the audio that's already in the video. Then I start to play through it and let my mind fill in all of the dead spaces with what it thinks should be there. So if I'm editing B-roll of a stream on a rainy day, then I need some raindrops hitting the leaves of a forest, or maybe I need some crickets, that sort of stuff. And this isn't confined purely to B-roll segments. If later on in the video you've got like a little infographic that pops up, well, it should probably make a sound. So we add those sorts of things as well. Finally, I'm gonna go through and add some transition sounds. Not every single cut to a different shot needs a sound, but for all of my most impactful scene changes, when I'm going from one major location to a different one, or I really just want the cut to hit, I'll add some sort of boom or like deep bass sound to it, maybe even a whoosh. All these transitions should really kind of be unobtrusive though. They should work in the background. The idea is that they're affecting the viewer, but the viewer doesn't really notice them. Sound design is often overlooked because it is really one of the most tedious forms of editing. But Epidemic Sound has just released a new plugin that makes all of this way easier. If you're not familiar with Epidemic Sound, they're an online library of like 40,000 songs and over 90,000 sound effects, all restriction-free for us YouTubers to use. They now have a tool that integrates directly into your editing software and allows you to search music and sound effects, then directly import them into your project. With this plugin, you can also shorten or extend any song to exactly the length that you need for your edit. Say you like a song that's 3 minutes long, but you really only need about a 1.5 minute portion for your video done in 2 clicks, it's insane. Currently, this plugin is only available for Adobe Suite users, so like Premiere Pro and After Effects, but they are releasing one for DaVinci Resolve. I actually have beta access for that, and it's ridiculously awesome. It works perfectly. If you're looking for a sound design library to step up your video editing game, you should really try them out. I actually have a link down in the description and a discount code that if you go through that link and use the code, you'll get 50% off your first 2 months on a monthly plan after their free trial, because they also have one of those, which is sick. Thank you, Epidemic Sound, for sponsoring this video. Now let's move on to tip number 4. Using plugins for your software is one of the easiest and most overlooked ways to make your video edits not only better, but more efficient. There's a plethora of really good plugin options out there for any type of video that you're creating, but my personal favorite as a DaVinci Resolve editor and as a YouTuber is this one called Magic Zoom, which was created by another YouTuber named Mr. Alex Tech. This tool makes it really easy to do power zooms on your footage, which is great for like emphasizing a certain point that you're making in a talking head like this, or even just kind of adding a little bit more visual interest and animation to your video. You can adjust the zoom scale, motion blur, and all sorts of other settings to polish up the effect in just a few clicks. It's totally free, but there is an option to donate to him if you see fit. This is not sponsored by Mr. Alex Tech, but I will leave a link to his video about it down in the description below. This one plugin alone has saved me countless hours of keyframing, so go and look for plugins that are gonna fit your needs as an editor that can really speed up your editing process. You're not gonna regret it, and there's so much stuff out there. I'm sure you'll find something that's helpful. This final advice is really important. Oftentimes, less is more. It depends on your niche, but for the most part, YouTube is starting to trend away from what was called the Mr. Beastification of video editing, where everything is super loud and colorful and just sensory overload. YouTube's currency nowadays is sincerity. So present your video in the way that you want to, and don't just do things because other people say that that's the right way to do it and get more views. All of these editing techniques are good to know, and there are proven methods to kind of make your videos flow better and for them to be more entertaining, but all of these things you have to keep in mind, they're just guidelines, and if it doesn't work for you, it might not, then don't do it. Don't let the guidelines, even things that I mentioned in this video, be hard-pressed rules, because what's most important is your creativity. Now, it also helps to have the right tools for the job, and that goes for editing as well as everything else. So if you want to know my top 5 things that I would have bought when I started editing if I knew I would be going on this professional journey, then you should watch this video right up over here.